The Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. Welcome to the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society, a podcast dedicated to suspense and horror stories from the golden age of radio. I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
I'm Joshua.
We love scary old-time radio stories. There's nothing quite like a disembodied voice telling a genuinely disturbing tale. But do these stories stand the test of time, or are we being deceived by nostalgia? Are they suspenseful or forgettable, bone-chilling or butt-numbing? That's what we're here to find out.
This week is my pick, and we're doing Cabin B13 and an episode titled The Sleep of Death. Originally an episode of suspense that aired on March 13th, 1943 with Ralph Bellamy, the story Cabin B13, written by John Dickson Carr, that followed a newlywed couple on the ship the SS Meravania for a fun-filled honeymoon. The groom disappears and there's no record of the couple being on board, and their cabin B13 does not exist. The show was so popular that Cabin B13 aired a second time on November 9th, 1943.
Carr was given the chance to create his own program under the title Cabin B13. It starred Arnold Moss as Dr. Fabian, the luxury liner's doctor who leads the listeners to different tales on the SS Moravania. Though 25 shows were created, there are only 3 known in existence. However, the show garners wide praise to this day. The 30-minute shows aired Mondays from 8:30 to 9 p.m. on CBS stations.
John Dickson Carr is considered a master mystery writer of what's known as locked room mysteries, in which an impossible crime is solved by a detective. So here is Cabin B13, The Sleep of Death.
Forget the petty distractions around you. Forget what you think you know. Forget everything but what you hear right now. It's late at night, and a chill has set in. You're alone, and the only light you see is coming from an antique radio. Listen to the sounds coming from the speaker. Listen to the music, and listen to the voices.
Cabin B13. From his notebooks of the strange and sinister, Dr. Fabian brings you tonight's tale of The Sleep of Death.
A circular bedroom, high in a castle tower, hung with rare tapestries, filled with a haunting atmosphere of witchcraft and death. The young American, Ned Whiteford, knew that for 200 years no person who had slept in that room had lived through the night. Whatever it was that killed left no trace. Would you, like Whiteford, have dared to rest your head there because you were in love?
From Cabin B13, CBS brings you another great tale of mystery and murder, written by the world-famous best-selling mystery author John Dickson Carr, directed by John Dietz. Now, here's Mr. Carr's famous Dr. Fabian, ship surgeon and world traveler, to tell you tonight's tale, The Sleep of Death.
Ned Whiteford crossed with us to France aboard the Mauravania back in '38. He was looking forward to his new position at the American Embassy. He was young, and even war jittery Paris was a magic land to him. It was on St. Catherine's Day that Ned, unknowingly, made a decision that brought him to the threshold of unspeakable terror and death. And he made it in the midst of the gayest celebration Paris knew, the president's costume ball at the opera. Look at Ned now, wearing the uniform of one of Lafayette's officers. And look closely at the dark-haired young girl in costume, sitting across from him at the little table half screamed by the palms.
Ned, don't. Please, you mustn't.
Look here, Ileana. We've got to settle this thing. You've enjoyed being here tonight, haven't you?
Oh, Ned, I've loved it. After being hemmed in at my uncle's place in the country, well, it's like heaven.
All right. When I take you back to the hotel tonight, I'm going to face this dragon uncle of yours.
No, you mustn't.
I'm going to say that you and I intend to get married, and that's that.
I can't marry you, Ned. I told you that.
But why not? Give me just one good reason.
Because I can't. My uncle would never allow it.
And that seems to you a good enough reason?
Yes.
This uncle of yours, what's his name?
Count Stephen Carr.
He's a Hungarian, I think you said.
Yes, so am I. My mother was an American.
What's he like, actually?
Well, he's a little eccentric. Ned.
What is it?
There he is now.
Your uncle?
Yes, the elegant man in plain evening clothes with the Order of the Golden Fleece across his chest.
I see him. He looks as black as a
Oh,
thundercloud.
give me my mask, quick, before he sees it.
No, Ileana.
Why not?
We'd better face this out now. Sit still.
Good evening, Ileana.
Good evening, Uncle Stephen. Uncle, may I present Ned Whiteford?
How do you do, sir?
How do you do? Ileana, do you think that costume is quite the thing to wear in public?
Why not?
An older generation might call it immodest. It looks like
Like what?
nothing. You go and get your cloak or your domino, whatever you wore here.
Uncle, please.
Do as I say.
Don't make me go home so soon. It's hardly 11 o'clock.
I was not asking you to go home, my dear. I was merely asking you to put on a wrap.
All right, I'll get it. You stay and talk to Ned.
I shall be delighted.
Will you sit down, sir?
Thank you. You seem to have had quite a gathering at this table.
Yes, some friends of mine from the embassy. They're upstairs dancing now.
Glasses, and still more glasses. I was quite an adept once at musical glasses.
Yes?
Have you ever tried it, young man?
No.
You take a spoon, like this, and...
Forgive me, sir. There's something I'd like to ask you.
Yes, young man?
Exactly know how to say this, so I'd better say it in the shortest way. I want to marry your niece. Look out, sir. You've smashed one of the glasses.
Doubtless a few francs will pay for it. There are other things with a higher value, at least for me.
Well, maybe I ought to mention that I'm attached to the American embassy here. That I have some money of my own and have to support Ileana well.
Indeed.
I only mention at the show, well, that Ileana will be well provided for. The ambassador will vouch for me if you'd like to ring him up.
I ought to mention, I have always kept Ileana carefully guarded from the world.
Almost too carefully guarded, don't you think?
That, young man, depends on my reason.
I'm sorry again.
You have known Ileana how long?
A week.
A week. You would not choose a business partner in a week. Yet you want to marry Ileana a week after you meet her.
We know our own minds, sir.
And you know more than the wisest men of the world. However, as one whose dearest wishes is Ileana's happiness.
I hope it is, Count Corey.
You doubt what I say?
Oh, no, sir. Go on.
Well, let me make you a counter-proposition. I own a chateau in Touraine, not far from Paris.
I know, Ileana told me.
And here's my suggestion. Why not come down and visit us for a week or two?
Well, that's very decent of you, sir.
Not at all. If at the end of that time you are not cured of this infatuation...
Well, it's not an infatuation. I swear it's not.
If at the end of that time you are not cured permanently of this feeling, you may take Ileana with my blessing. Is that fair?
It's more than fair, Count Corey. I don't know how to thank you.
Don't try. There is just one thing, however.
Yes, sir?
At the Chateau d'Azay, there's a certain bedroom. We call it the Tapestry Room.
Yes?
I assure you it will be very interesting to sleep in that room.
Why? Is it haunted or anything like that?
Not exactly haunted. And now, if you don't mind, I shall say good night. I think I can trust you to bring Ileana safely to the hotel.
Yes.
In the meantime, look there.
What is it now?
Those streams of our fellow guests pouring down the main staircase.
Shapes of nightmare. Shapes of delirium. Insane, dead masks where only the eyes move. Mightn't you be terrified, perhaps, if you could look behind those masked gargoyle faces?
No, I don't think so. They're only ordinary people like ourselves.
That's, where you make your mistake. I shall expect you for the weekend. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Ned.
It's all right, Ileana. You can come out from behind the palm.
What was my uncle saying? I couldn't hear.
Ileana, it couldn't be better. He's a very decent old boy, actually. And he's invited me to the Chateau d'Arze.
Did he say anything about the Tapestry Room?
Yes, he asked me if I'd mind sleeping there.
And you said?
I said I would, naturally.
You mustn't do it, Ned. I won't let you do it.
Why the devil not?
Because everybody who sleeps in that room dies.
Are you serious?
Ned, please don't do it.
Nonsense. A lot of superstitions about every old house.
This isn't a superstition, Ned. It happened once when I was a little girl. A man insisted on sleeping there. They found him dead in the morning.
So? How did he die?
They don't know. There wasn't a mark on his body. He wasn't shot, or stabbed, or strangled, or poisoned, or hurt in any way. He was just dead.
2 nights later, in the part of France once called La Touraine, the wind moans down the valleys, and rain flickers across the apple trees, and thunder stirs in those haunted hills. It brings small comfort to a young man driven in an ancient carriage from the railway station along snake-like roads and leading to what destination? Ahead, a flash of lightning shows the gray walls and conical slate-roofed towers of a chateau set some distance back from the road. Light shines from its narrow windows, dimly seen through the rain.
Driver, coachman.
Yes, monsieur?
Is that the Chateau d'Arze up ahead?
Yes, monsieur. I will take you to the very door
If what? Why do you cross yourself?
if I am permitted.
What should stop you?
Only fear, monsieur. I am not much afraid.
What was that?
Only the dogs, monsieur. They keep many dogs, large dogs at the Chateau d'Arze.
Those dogs dangerous? They have to fly at anybody who goes to the front door?
I cannot say, monsieur. But I should advise you to make haste.
Here's your money.
No, thank you. Good night, monsieur. And if one so humble as myself may be permitted a word of advice,
Yes?
beware of the Tapestry Room.
You are Edward Whitefoot?
Yes.
Monsieur is expected. Please to enter. Monsieur's hat and coat?
Thank you. Hello, Ileana.
Non return à petit tonneau. You'd better not kiss me, Ned. Madame Slade says to look out for my uncle. She's our housekeeper.
Where's your uncle now?
In the drawing room. Come along.
Ileana, is anything wrong?
Everything's wrong. 2 of my dogs were in horrible pain this afternoon. Dr. Solomon had to put them out with chloroform.
You don't think...
I hope nobody's practicing, that's all. Here we are.
Nice tiger skins on the floor. I say, who's that little old man with a gray beard sitting over by the fire?
That's Dr. Solomon.
That funny-looking eyes.
He watches and watches and watches. But he's an old friend of the family. Come on, let's get this over with.
Ah, my young friend. Welcome to the Chateau d'Azay.
Thank you, Count Corey.
You must be very wet after your long drive. Go up to the fire and warm yourself.
Thank you.
Madame Play,
Yes, monsieur.
please tell Antoine to take our guest's luggage up to the Tapestry Room.
The Tapestry Room, monsieur?
That is what I said, Madame Play.
Yes, monsieur.
An odd coincidence, Mr. Whiteford. Dr. Solomon and I were just discussing the fate of the last person who slept in the Tapestry Room.
This is not good, my friend. This is against my advice.
Here, Dr. Solomon croaked.
This is not good, I tell you. It is the wrong season of the moon.
Moon? But there's no moon tonight. It's raining cats and dogs.
Don't talk about dawn. Nevertheless, it is the wrong season of the moon. I say no more.
Cheerful man, that doctor.
Don't do it, Ned. I won't be responsible if they make you do it.
But look here, Count Corey. What did happen to the last fellow who slept in the Tapestry Room?
You must not call him a fellow, young man. He was a very saintly gentleman. The Bishop of Tours. That was some time ago. Eliana was only 15 years old. But surely she must remember it.
I remember it.
The church said our bishop has no use for superstitions. He insisted on sleeping there. I made him as comfortable as possible. He was found dead the next morning, with a crucifix still in his hand.
Was it poison?
There was no poison, monsieur.
Here, Dr. Solomon.
It's true, Ned.
There were just two curious things in connection with the death, Mr. Whitefoot. On the mantelpiece was found burning a stick of incense. Ordinary incense, nothing wrong with it.
Yes, sir.
And under the dressing table, the police found an empty jar of ointment. Now, come, use your detective wits. A dead man, and some burning incense, and an empty jar of ointment. What do you make of that?
I don't make anything of it. Is there any reason for this story of death?
Reason?
Any legend attached to the room or something like that?
Yes, there is.
Well, sir?
They're a very old family, my friend. Old and perhaps accursed. When certain of my ancestors moved from Hungary to France in the 17th century, they brought certain beliefs with them. The old religion.
The old religion?
Yes, the cult of Diana. The witch cult, if you prefer.
Now, look here, sir.
Must we talk about this?
Ah, you smile. When I say the word witch, Mr. Whiteford, you think of some humorous picture on a Halloween card. It was very different in the Middle Ages, believe me. There were many to worship unashamed at the grand Sabbath, to receive all favors from Satan, their master, to dance forever joyously in the red quadrilles of the netherworld. Some 200 years ago, an ancestress of mine, Catherine Corey, was tortured to death in the Tapestry Room for professing the old religion. Many persons have not thought it safe to sleep there since. Are you answered?
Come, sir, this is some kind of elaborate joke.
Joke? The Bishop of Tours did not find it a joke.
Not a mark on his body. I assure you, as a physician, not a mark on his body.
You hear, Dr. Solomon?
I hear him.
Understand me, my boy. There's no compulsion in this. If you have not the nerve to sleep in that room...
Who says I haven't got the nerve?
You're weakening. I think I can see it in your face.
Would you like to make a little bet on that?
What sort of bet?
If I spend the night in this famous room and come out of it alive...
Go on.
Will you give your consent to the marriage immediately? Tomorrow morning?
Why tomorrow morning?
Because I don't think the atmosphere of this place is good for Ileana. What do you say? Will you do it?
Very well, my boy. I accept the terms of your wager.
Don't do it, Ned. For the love of heaven, don't do it.
High up in the north tower of the Chateau d'Azay, under the conical slate roof, is the circular room hung with faded tapestries. These tapestries move slightly, with uneasy, mimic life to the clamor of the storm outside. Candles burn along the mantelpiece and beside the great four-poster bed. The flames of these candles waver, too, as the door opens.
This is the Tapestry Room, monsieur.
Thank you, Madame Flay.
That is the mantelpiece where the incense burned. That is the bedroom Monsignor, the bishop, died.
Very inviting, isn't it?
Will there be anything else that monsieur requires? Some sandwiches? A decanter of whiskey?
No, thanks. I had a drink with Count Corey before I came upstairs.
Very well, monsieur. Monsieur's shaving water will be brought up in the morning, if he requires it. Good night.
Infernal old harpy. Trying to scare a fellow out of his wits just because... Oh, build a good fire anyway. I didn't realize how cold it was. What's that?
It's I, Ileana. May I come in?
No, Ileana. I don't want you exposed to whatever it is.
Ned, listen. Are you going to bed or are you going to sit up all night?
I'm going to sit up all night, naturally.
Then let me sit up with you.
No.
Why not?
First, because it may be dangerous. Second, because I promised your uncle I'd go through this alone.
Oh, I wish you hadn't had that drink with him.
Couldn't have done anything to it. You poured it.
Yes, that's true, only...
It was only one of the dogs.
No. Sounded like somebody walking. Inside the wall of this room. Don't you hear it?
By George, it is somebody walking inside the wall. Get behind that tapestry, Ileana. Quick. Hurry.
All right.
Count Corey! Where did you come from?
Forgive me, my boy, for seeming to appear out of the wall and between the tapestries, like Mephisto appearing to Faust. This red dressing gown perhaps adds to the effect.
How did you get here? A passage between the walls?
Exactly. A little device of my ancestors for visiting this room when its occupants were so unmannerly as to bolt the door.
The door is not bolted. You could have walked straight in.
But I could not have done it unobserved.
No, maybe not.
Have you had any other visitors, my boy?
No.
You're sure of that?
Quite sure.
And since nobody saw me come here, I'll just sit down by the fire. Please sit opposite me.
Is this the showdown, sir?
I don't understand you.
There's got to be a showdown between us. Is that why you're here?
I am here, young man, to explain certain things to you. Now, will you have a cigarette? You're not doped. That's what you're afraid of.
I'll have one. Yes.
Good. Right?
Thank you.
When I was discussing the witch cult a while ago, you did not appear to think I meant what I said.
Do you want a perfectly frank answer to that?
Yes.
I think you're mad enough to mean anything.
What you say, in a sense, is quite true. In an old and inbred family like ours, the mind can crack, and the fantasies of witchcraft become as real, more real, than the living world. Let me give you an example.
Go on.
The saucer on the table beside you is Ming porcelain. It was once owned by Catherine Corley, a martyr of the old religion. Yet you're using it as an ashtray.
I beg the witch lady's pardon. I'll blow off the ash.
A dangerous remark, sir. Don't you understand that to a sick brain which knows but can't help itself, you have profaned this room merely by entering it? Therefore you deserve to die?
Like the Bishop of Tours?
Exactly.
You're not going to tell me the devil killed him.
The devil's agent may be flesh and blood.
Then it was murder.
Of course it was murder. Murder so cunningly contrived that no one ever saw through it.
Go on.
I asked you before to use your detective wits on this problem. Incense was burned in this room. Why?
Suppose you tell me.
Obviously, I think to conceal something else which would be too easily noticed.
To conceal what?
The smell of chloroform.
Chloroform?
Yes. A drug not well understood by laymen. Dr. Solomon was using chloroform this afternoon to dispose of some dogs.
So I've heard.
Dr. Solomon is old and forgetful.
You mean chloroform could be stolen?
It could be, easily. Now suppose, just suppose, I take a pad saturated with chloroform, I'd place it over the mouth and nostrils of a man already sleeping or drugged so that he gets no other air.
Wait a minute. That won't do.
Why not?
Chloroform burns and blisters when it touches the skin. You'd leave marks.
Not at all, my friend. Not at all. If I first covered the mouth and nostrils with some substance like...
Ointment.
You're waking up. Now observe what follows. In a few seconds, unconsciousness. In 2 minutes, 3 minutes...
Certain death. Yes.
But chloroform, it evaporates. Delay your postmortem for 24 hours. It's a very easy matter in these country districts. And no trace remains in the blood. Murder without a mark, my friend. Murder without a mark.
There's just one thing you're forgetting, Count Corey.
What's that?
I'm not sleeping. And I'm not drugged.
Oh, yes. You are?
In the cigarette?
No. In the drink you had with me.
What was it?
Morphine. You've had enough to put 3 men to sleep. That's it. Try to get up.
I'll try. And I'll do it.
You've knocked over the fire island. Could have been in the fire yourself if I hadn't caught you.
Take your hands off me.
Just as you please.
If I could reach that bell, pull.
You can't. Better sit down again.
You murdering lunatic. So that's how you killed the Bishop of Tours. And that's how you're going to kill me.
I? You don't think I killed the Bishop of Tours?
Didn't you?
You young fool. I'm not trying to kill you. I'm trying to save you. Dr. Solomon.
Yes, monsieur, of course.
Come out from behind that secret door. Come out and be my witness.
Yes, monsieur. I shall always guard the family honor, even when I guess how men die.
This young man evidently thinks I've been talking about myself. Am I, in the popular parlance, mad?
Oh, heaven forbid, monsieur. I have never known a saner man.
Have you any notion, Mr. Whitefoot, why I brought you to this house? You would not have believed me if I had merely told you. So I had to bring you here and show you.
Show me? What?
Come out from there, please. Come out!
Ileana!
Why have I kept Ileana so well guarded from the world? Why at a fancy dress ball did I object to the costume of a medieval witch? Whose dogs were poisoned so that chloroform should be brought? Who poured you the drink drugged with morphine?
The devil's name! What are you trying to tell me?
Ileana. She has been hopelessly insane for more than 10 years.
And so ends my story, The Sleep of Death, a tale which may give uneasy moments to those of you who may be inclined to fall in love at first sight. Next week I shall tell you a story that many of you have asked me to tell again. It's the adventure of an easygoing, straightforward New York detective who followed a beautiful murder suspect to Port Said, the crossroads of crime, and who learned that duels are still fought with swords as well as with 38s. And so, next week, when I tell you this tale I call The Dancer from Stamboul, will you join me, Dr. Fabian, here in my cabin B13?
From Cabin B13, CBS has brought you another strange and sinister tale of mystery and murder, written by the world-famous best-selling author John Dickson Carr and directed by John Dietz. Arnold Moss is featured as Dr. Fabian, and in tonight's drama, Cliff Carpenter appeared as Ned Whiteford, Janice Gilbert played Ileana, and Peter Capell appeared as Count Corey. The music for Cabin B13 is especially composed and conducted by Alfredo Antonini. Join us again next week, same time, same station, for Dr. Fabian's tale, The Dancer from Stamboul. Just for fun, make a New Year's resolution to keep on listening to CBS on Sunday nights next year. Otherwise, you'll miss all the fun Jack Benny brings for next Sunday, January 2nd. Marks the day Jack moves here to CBS with all his crew, Mary Livingston, Bill Harris, Rochester, all the rest. From next Sunday on, the Jack Benny Show will come to you exclusively over these CBS stations. The time, 7 o'clock.
That was Cabin B13 and an episode, The Sleep of Death, here on the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. Once again, I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
I'm Joshua.
And that was my pick this week, and I learned a lot. I had never heard of Cabin B13 and stumbled across by accident, so of course I did my research and went, wow, that's really cool. Then I learned all about the mystery writer Carr, which we have featured now in the last 2 weeks or something like that.
Well, we made reference to him last week in our discussion of the sealed book, and the week before that we did his
He was hosting
the show.
And so all of this was new to me, that here's this amazing mystery writer, and I knew nothing about him, and I felt a little dumb that I didn't know anything about this guy. And Cabin B13, the original episode called Cabin B13 on Suspense, Joshua, you have some more information about that.
You've heard it, episode.
But it was based in something you were telling me earlier was something, no?
No.
That was somebody else. That was a previous girlfriend.
Yay, I'm the current one.
The episode of Suspense of Cabin B13, I didn't have time to listen to it. Is it as great as it is made out to be that they did it twice?
It's a really good, solid early suspense episode, and it's got that sort of constrained setting where the Cabin B13 name comes from. And now they're sort of drawing that out and making the character from the suspense episode your sort of mysterious host. He's a little like a mysterious traveler in this one, Dr. Fabian, who's telling you these creepy tales.
It's interesting to extrapolate that much into its own show.
Yeah, I will
spin-off.
totally confess that my visual for this in my head was Doc from the Love Boat, which is not scary at all.
Not in the slightest. But I also...
Gavin McLeod?
No,
the other guy.
Yeah.
Bernie.
Yes.
I kind of want to see that spin-off. And in the 70s, they would have done that spin-off. It was another spin-off heavy time. So it's kind of fitting.
There's something missing. And what it is for me is if you're going to call it Cabin B13 and it's based on this cabin that doesn't exist in this old episode, somehow the narrator needs to be in that cabin. Everything needs to take place on that ship and be ship-oriented.
Well, the setup is that he's on a boat and he talks to passengers and he gets their stories, which vaguely reminds me of way back when we did Eye for an Eye with Vincent Price, World Traveler, but it doesn't really sew the scenes together.
Thank you. That's exactly right.
It's just a framing sequence, though, so it doesn't really mar the story itself. I see your point. And it was, again, any reason to get anyone to listen to these radio shows, just like today. They're desperate. If there's
my point.
Something they know, like, audiences loved Cabin B13, so we're just going to call it Cabin B13 and hope they tune in.
From
what wasn't included in the intro here, which also tells us that at the time, this story was really well liked and well known. The original Cabin B13 is that Appointment with Fear, which was the British version of Suspense, kicked off their series with another version of Cabin B13.
That was the thing that I wanted you to reference.
Now it dawned on
Now
me.
you've done.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
I just wanted to stare at you blankly on the podcast.
Okay, well that's out of the way. What do you think, Tim?
We've often spoken of the line between horror and humor. And this hopped back and forth between the two of them frequently for me of like scary, compelling, funny, satirical.
Well, here's my question. Do you think unintentionally funny or accidentally funny?
A little both.
I think most of it was intentional just because of some of the heavy-handed tropes and the sophistication of some of the writing. I mean,
in particular, the carriage ride to the Hungarian count's castle.
Exactly.
Gives them the warning about the Tapestry Room. The Tapestry Room, thundercrack.
Yes. Thunder was on those cues. Like every ominous line,
And
the thunder was like, I'm on it. Yeah, and dogs howling. In some ways, that's what Carr was doing with his story, is he was going for every supernatural trope and then at the end morphing it into a locked room mystery, which is what he was famous for, with totally human explanations. And so I think he very intentionally hit every single one of those. You're right. Baying dog, thunder strikes, the scary maid who answers the door, the creepy doctor, Dr. Solomon, and they're all red herrings.
Yes, Dr. Solomon.
My favorite funny bit, which I know this was not intentional, was the language is so heightened and it's so melodramatic, but in that opening ball, I think it's like maybe the second time they talk about the Tapestry Room. She tells him when she finds out, like, you said you would stay in the Tapestry Room, and people die in the Tapestry Room, and his response is, "Are you serious?"
What's so scary about a tapestry room?
Well, it was this very modern tone. We're doing this Tapestry Room thing. That's what this is.
You're right. It's
My favorite, I think, unintentionally funny moment was when he says, "You know that you can play songs on glasses." And he starts tapping the glasses, and proceeds to play clank. Clank, 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 clank. You're not playing any song at all. What?
You're just hitting glasses.
You're just hitting glasses. I was waiting for this. Ding, 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 ding. Like he was gonna but it was a clang, clang. No, you're not playing any kind of song.
But do you think that was unintentional? Like some sound effects guy was like, I don't know how to play glassware, or do you think that was? I really liked that moment because it was I thought intentionally really awkward because you had Ned who was like he's gonna ask for this guy's niece's hand in marriage, right? And he's like trying to tell him about that, and there's like the whole time under the top of him, nervously trying to get to the subject matter of marriage. And I found it really. I thought it was intentionally funny, and because she sets him up as like it's my uncle. He's very eccentric.
That's what I was going to say. Is that the entire episode is geared
glasses.
Right? The entire episode is geared so that the twist works. That her uncle is a crazy madman. It drove us so far to him being the problem that I actually got to the point of, oh, this is a straightforward monster movie. This guy's the problem. He's a monster, and he's a terrible, and they're going to die in this Tapestry Room, and it's going to be him that kills him. So that brings me to this, that I was caught off guard by the ending.
I was as well.
I was too. But it was only the playing of the glassware and the fact that he was so insistent that his niece cover herself up, and he was very overbearing and overprotective at the beginning, that made me dislike him, because after that point he was super reasonable, like when he was skeptical of their 1 week romance, and Ned was kind of a dolt, right? And so when he said things like, "You take more than a week to choose your business partner," right? Line. Yeah, I'm not like, I think you're right. And so it was an interesting.
You're a dad, and if your daughter comes home after a week with a guy,
but it's an interesting mix. If he was too crazy at the beginning, right, you wouldn't have believed the end. And then they explained why he was so adamant that she cover herself up. It wasn't that she was revealing too much, or it wasn't
she was dressed
as a witch, and that just set him off. And I also like that twist because the Count was absolutely right. Ned was so ridiculously in love that he wouldn't have believed this story. The only way to save Ned was to actually show him that this woman is really crazy.
That was the part that for me, like, I understand this logically, but emotionally this sounds ridiculous. I'm like, well, I guess I better have this guy almost die.
Exactly.
But
this is where
he was
this
there in
story
the wall with the doctor, ready to jump in and save him. He just wanted to see him.
The story loses me, and I'm with Tim. Whenever I think you can take him aside and be done with this in 5 seconds. She's nuts, and be done with it. What is with the elaborate setup to do this? Is it because he wouldn't believe her unless he saw it for himself?
He says that. He says that out loud, and I believe the way Ned is written and performed. Two things.
It's pretty elaborate,
I think we're supposed to believe that, A, the niece is not totally wrong, that the Count is eccentric. Even though he's not evil and eccentric, he's clearly eccentric. Like when he comes,
look how he plays his glasses.
Yep, and when he comes out of the wall, I love that moment. When he comes out of the wall and he's like, "You must be surprised I came out from between the tapestries, like Mephisto to Faust."
Oh yes, my red robe
doesn't help anything, does it? So it's this really.
Are you coming on to me, sir?
Exactly. He did go
Tapestry.
Oh, you want me to spend the week at your chateau in your Tapestry Room?
I'll tap that street.
Or you went too far, Eric.
Is that it? Is that it? So you're fine with his elaborate scheme to get him to see that she's insane.
Let's back up. This is not my favorite style of radio show, but what I'm arguing is that it's consistent within this radio show. I think they set the parameters, stylistic parameters, at the very top of the show, and they are very consistent. I think it's a very self-aware, slightly meta playing and melding genres, and it is very over the top in spots, So I think it's intentional is all I'm arguing. And I enjoyed it for that. It's not my favorite kind of writing.
I did enjoy it. It is just one of those things. Putting myself in his shoes, in the future, sir, if someone is interested in your daughter, take a picture of her trying to kill. Like, there's other ways.
You know what? Maybe it is a parent thing because I just did not like Ned, and I'm telling you, if there's some guy I don't like who comes snooping around my daughter, I'm gonna like, all right, I have this Tapestry Room, pal.
Come in the family room.
Yeah.
You like foosball? I don't know why you have
The
a
haunted
foosball.
Yeah.
Here's what I
Stepped out from behind the foosball table.
The bishop played foosball in my family room and died with no marks on his body.
Here's what I did like, and we alluded to all the tropes being thrown in there. I really enjoyed the carriage ride and the warning and the howling dogs and the thunder and the castle, and I love the setting of this. And again, we talked about this before, for radio to be visually appealing to me. In other words, I see it without effort in my head. I liked all of that. I'm also a huge fan of each and every single version, movie, book, radio show of Dracula. So I love that story a lot. And this reminded me of that. You know, there was a lot of this that was very similar to the Dracula story in the setup, like the howling dogs and the thunder and the castle.
The Hungarian count.
Hungarian count and all of that. I really like the story of how this radio show got on the air. Cabin B13, it's an old show. They gave him a show, they called it that. I like all that information about it. So when I read about it and found this, and then there's only 3 episodes left, and then a lot of people commented on it's really highly regarded in the old-time radio world. People say it's really great writing. It's really great. I will say, though, that the story and the show did not live up to all of that.
Yeah.
I presented it anyway because I think it's absolutely worth that we have to hear this. I think it's an important part of radio history, especially with the writer. And this idea that you would just take that title and make a show out of it, and see what happens.
I think maybe my favorite bit, I already had a favorite bit. My other favorite bit is this little farcical exchange of, like, it's raining cats and dogs. Don't mention dogs. That little thrown in aside.
And again, the poor dogs died.
Can we clear something up for me? And I get lost sometimes in these. Why were the dogs chloroformed?
She poisoned the dog, or did something to the dog, so the vet would have to come and chloroform them to put them to sleep, to send them to the farm.
They were in pain. They said that the dogs were wailing in pain. So Dr. Solomon came, brought the chloroform so she could steal the chloroform to kill him in the Tapestry Room.
Thank you. I did not. Twice, and I went, I didn't make that connection. And then I said, but I got to move on. You know, like I can't, I'm not Joshua. I don't have all the time in the world to listen to every single radio show ad infinitum. Thank you. Now I get that connection.
And I liked the incense and ointment.
Yes,
I liked real world clues worked really well.
Yes, I loved the detective part of this, the mystery part of it and solving it. I also liked her at the end. I thought she was super creepy when she started laughing, came out. I thought that was great.
Yes, I was going to kill you.
And like we all said,
can we still get married?
We were all caught off guard by the ending, so you got to give him kudos for that.
Yeah,
I think I enjoyed it a little more than you guys. I loved the Count. I loved how legitimately crazy he was. I interpreted that it wasn't an act. He was crazy, but he just happened to be a crazy guy who was going to help out Ned in this situation.
Here, I'm the Count. I'm playing the glasses. Wait, hold on. Let me see if I can get it to. That's what it was.
He's really good.
Wow.
And then he breaks the glass.
Was that Mozart?
I think even when it was over the top, I really enjoyed the language of it. I thought it was fun. I love when the Count describes the people at the masquerade coming down the stairs. Nobody, stops a conversation to note some people across the room and starts going, "Look at them, shapes of nightmare, shapes of delirium." It is really over the top, but I don't know. I don't know why, because they just so embraced this characterization. That was a lot of fun, culminating in him stepping out from the tapestries going, "Do you like my red nightgown?"
Cabin B13 has something going for it that I really like, and that is the opening. That foghorn is a really great suck me in. Like, that's it. Oh, yeah, that sounds scary and distant. And we've talked about this a long time ago. There's something about that first attracted me to old-time radio, and this is a weird thing to say, I think, but it's the sound of a distant train whistle.
It's the mysterious traveler.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, distant, like, oh, the train's here, it's coming into town, and you hear it. That's still to this day.
It's eerie. It has
eerie.
some melancholy to it. It's very
people are
evocative.
arriving or leaving.
Well, yeah, so they say every story starts with someone leaves town or someone comes to town.
Right. So in this case, that foghorn had that feel to it, Then, so I love the opening of it, and I love the concept. I guess a little bit of doctor on a ship.
I love how you start with, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Exciting and new.
All right, so final verdict on this, guys.
Tim,
I would not call this a classic. I very much enjoyed it. The conflict for me of that's not a good way to express that your daughter suffers from mental problems is purely retrospect. In the moment of the story, I enjoyed it.
Not a classic. I'm not even entirely sure it stands the test of time. I really enjoyed the character of the Count. I enjoyed combining the supernatural story tropes with the locked room classic mystery tropes. Perfectly entertaining 30 minutes of listening.
I will piggyback that. That's exactly right. Lots of things could have been better, but I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of it, and I was caught off guard at the end. And I think I researched too hard at the beginning. and came in with this expectation of, oh my God, only 3 episodes exist of this beautifully written thing, and it was fine. It was pretty good. But again, I think that as we do this podcast and we're trying to define our parameters of timeless classic and all these things we say, I think for me it comes down to, if you were going to tell someone who had never listened to old time radio, would this be one you would hear? No, this would not be one I would put on that list. And that's kind of where I'm judging things by now. Oh, yes, you've got to listen to this episode of Suspense. Put that on your list, So I wouldn't put it there. It would be one I would put on, hey, yeah, once you get through these 30.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. This has been another episode of the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. If you'd like to learn more about us,
please go visit ghoulishdelights.com. We have old episodes of the podcast there for your perusal. We also have information about the live shows we do, because we do live shows. We will take scripts from these old radio shows and perform them in the style of old radio shows.
And if you enjoyed the podcast, please go to iTunes and write us a review. Reviews really do help. It gets extra eyes and ears on our podcast. So tell us what you think of it. You can write a rave review. We will appreciate that. You can write a not so great review. We just want to hear back from you, especially if you like the podcast, though.
That's our new theme song. Who's got the next one?
I think I'm next.
You're next.
Next time, we will be listening to an episode of Suspense called Ghost Hunt. Until then.
Look out!